Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
Welcome to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike, and as ever, I am your host. Now, if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. Usually on this podcast, we explore and dissect the evolution of the horror genre by looking at particular subgenres across several weeks. We have already completed a series on the evolution of the slasher, a series on the evolution of the ghost story, and we've just this week finished a series on the evolution of folk horror. Now we're on a little hiatus, a little break between series before the evolution of the zombie movie kicks off in January. But as you're probably aware, we are currently in the middle of October, the most important and exciting month of the year for us horror fans. And there is so much incredible stuff coming out in the next few weeks, and I couldn't really avoid it. So what we've got for the next couple of weeks is, I suppose, a little Halloween mini-series. So you won't be getting episodes every Friday. They might not be as long as the usual episodes. They might be mini episodes, and they will just come out as and when over the next couple of weeks between now and the 31st of October, Halloween. We'll mostly be covering new stuff, but we may also be covering a couple of goldie oldies when we get the chance. But today, kicking things off, we are going to be covering a new TV series which dropped on Netflix today. It is, of course, The Haunting of Hill House. Now, as I'm sure most people are aware, this series is based on the original novel, The Haunting of Hill House, written by Shirley Jackson. That novel has, of course, been adapted into a couple of films. Firstly, the brilliant film directed by Robert Wise in 1963, and then the not-so-brilliant adaptation by Jan de Bont in 1999. And this 10-part series is, obviously, it's a kind of expansion of the world. It's not a straightforward remake. It's created and directed by horror master Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan, who has previously done some incredible movies such as Gerald's Game, Hush and Absentia. And he was the perfect person, I think, to take this project on. In a minute, we're going to get into the discussion, but I will just say this. I think this is the best adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel. This is the best version of The Haunting I've ever seen. And I think it might be the best horror TV show I have ever watched. It's truly, truly spectacular. Now, obviously the series only dropped today. We know that not everyone would have had a chance to watch it yet. So the review is going to be split into two halves. First of all, me and my guest Boyd Hilton will discuss just our general thoughts on the programme, and we won't go into any spoilers. We'll just briefly give our reviews. And then in the second half of the podcast, we go into depth and talk a little bit more about specifically the first few episodes, some of the story beats, some of our favourite moments, and what we think of all of the characters. If you haven't seen the series yet, you can listen to the first half of our discussion until we give a spoiler warning, and then in the second half we discuss spoilery details up to episode 5. So there you have it, you have been warned. Here is my chat with the brilliant Boyd Hilton. Okay, welcome back to the podcast, Boyd Hilton. Hello.
Hello, Mike.
Hello. How have you been?
I've been very well. I've been busy.
Been very busy. You've just been telling me you do 3 podcasts a week now, is this?
3 or is it 4?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I do, yeah. And other semi-regular ones as well.
Yeah, and all the other stuff.
So apologies in advance to anyone who's sick and tired of this voice.
Yeah. If you might have a lot of fans that just download any podcast that includes you.
I don't think so.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Fans, the idea of fans is quite good. I like the idea of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think it's true.
Exactly. You never know.
No.
This is a busy time for horror fans as well. Obviously, we're in the middle of October. There's quite a lot of horror stuff going on, isn't there? Are you excited for the new Halloween movie?
I'm very excited about the new Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Although I have just seen a review of it.
Oh no, I'm trying to avoid reviews.
Yeah, I didn't read the review, but all I will say was a 3-star review.
Yeah, that's what I'm really worried about.
Yeah.
I'd rather, in some ways, it be getting 5s and 1s than 3s.
I know.
Do you know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's an interesting.
But I'm going with an open mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You never know. And I mean, it's got to be better than Halloween 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, that's the thing.
Yes.
And what about? Have you had a chance to see Suspiria yet? The new Luca.
Do you know what? I've missed like 3 screenings of Suspiria.
Yeah.
I'm really annoyed because we talked about that. I think in the first of these shows that I did with you.
We did. We were talking about Giallo and all that.
We were talking about Giallo, yeah. Because Suspiria is definitely. It's one of my favourite not that great films. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's my
exactly,
favourite atmosphere.
exactly.
Yeah, as I talked, and so I am intrigued. Although Again, everyone I know has seen it. Some people absolutely. I mean, that is a bit of a 1 and 5/5.
That's what I was going to say. That is
Yeah.
dividing people.
And
isn't it?
you've seen it?
I've seen it, although I've got to say I went to a screening of it where the screening. I don't know if you heard about this. The version we were shown was like an early version, and they came out at the beginning and they said, "Oh, just so you know, there are some scenes that are in German and the subtitles aren't put on there yet, but don't worry, it's not going to affect your enjoyment of the film." And we were like, "Okay." Anyway, about 50% of the film is German. Wow. I'm not even joking. So there was half the film that I could not understand.
Without subtitles?
Yeah, no subtitles. And there was a whole screening room of us there. There was Kim Newman and Jamie Graham and Anton and all these people. And I mean, people were not happy. People were walking out midway through. It was poor form. It was poor
Did
form.
they apologise? Did they?
Yes, they sent a very apologetic email the next morning, and we're going again next week to watch it.
Is that why
with
there's
the
a screening on
subtitles.
Saturday? That's unusual.
I wonder if that's what they've added a whole wave of new screenings. I think as a panic apology about the fact that no one could understand half of what's going on. But from what I saw, I liked anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Oh god, that would be really annoying because you have to go and see it again. And
and it's a 2.5 hour film, so actually it's that's quite an effort to go watch it again.
That's
I wonder
lot.
whether a lot of people are going to bother. Like a lot of people in the one that I was in, I think were just like, well, fuck this then. You know?
Fair enough.
Yeah. But anyway, other more exciting stuff going on. So we're here to talk about The Haunting of Hill House, which is just dropping on Netflix. I don't know how you find this. Is it tricky to review TV shows these days in the way that they come out all at once like this? Because it's not like you can review an episode a week anymore or anything like that. And it's like, what do you do? Do you binge watch do you review it as a whole season? Do you review like the first few episodes? Like,
it is a good question. Generally, it's much. It's different. It's definitely different with a Netflix or Amazon Prime show. Like when you're reviewing previewing Bodyguard, for example, every week, which is definitely a weekly serial show, then that's fine because it's all very strictly controlled. Yeah. But with this, it is weird, and but Netflix, the people who do Netflix's publicity, who put stuff on their portal, so you can view it, are very good. And usually, if it's like a 10-part, so this is a 10-part series. Yes. Initially, I got to see 3 episodes. Yes. Then they kind of built it up to 6, and then they moved up to 10. So they kind of steadily put all the episodes out there. And you've watched most of them as well, haven't you?
A few.
So they are pretty good, Netflix, because they know that they want reviewers to watch as many episodes as possible generally. Whereas, funnily enough, it's the other way around with other shows. With other shows, they're like, "Oh no, we're only going to show you the first 1 or 2 if you're lucky." So it makes
tricky.
It different. Yeah.
And do you find them when you review them? Do you try, if you can, to watch the whole thing so that you can sort of say, "Watch this whole season"?
I try to watch as much as possible.
But it's impossible. How do you find time?
I can't watch 10 hours.
You've got 5 podcasts, boy.
I've got 5 podcasts. I've got 2 magazines. So it's hard. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if I watch like 3 or 4, I feel that's
you get a pretty good indication,
that's good
don't
enough,
you?
Isn't it? Yeah.
I always find if it's not grabbed you by then, then fair,
exactly. Yeah. And in this case particularly, I had to watch a few of them because I was interviewing Mike Flanagan, the writer director.
Amazing.
So that was weird because I watched the first 3 before I interviewed him, and then when I interviewed him, because that was quite a long time ago now, for Pilot TV magazine that I do. And then the other episodes came after, and I did feel almost, I wish I'd watched like up to 5 that I have now before, because each episode evolves so much. We'll talk about.
So clever.
There's so much in it. So I was slightly annoyed actually that I'd only watched 3 when I interviewed him. Yeah, but he was fine about it.
Good. Well, that's it. Well, I was thinking about how we can do this, because I was thinking what's probably best to do is if we start by just being like super vague and basically just say, is this any good? Is it worth seeing? Blah 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 blah. And then maybe we'll do in the second half of this, we'll talk a bit more about the episodes that we've seen, those first few episodes, maybe up to episode 5 or 4, in a bit more depth, and we'll talk properly about the story and what kind of story it tells, and for people that might want to hear it. But then, first of all, we'll just start by sort of saying, is it worth it? I suppose. Yeah. So first of all, like, how familiar are you with The Haunting of Hill House, the novel and the films and all that kind of stuff?
Well, the novel, I know the novel is legendary.
And
I haven't read it.
Me neither.
But I know that lots of people have, and it has produced 2 film adaptations. So the 1963, I think, Robert Wise's version, which is great,
which is fantastic,
black and white, a kind of a classic. I mean, a lot of people. Have you done
we
it?
did,
yes.
we did.
I should have remembered that.
No, don't worry. We did it back to back in the same episode as The Innocents as well, which came out a couple of years. And they were kind of like. year one, but they were 2 separate years, but they were kind of like chapter 1 of proper adult ghost movies, like before that in early cinema, ghost movies were funny or farcical or like Vincent Price or, spooky kind of Scooby-Doo type, and I think like these two were very much marketed as like these are horror movies for grown-ups, and they've got all these kind of weird psychosexual subtext going on and all that other stuff, so they were kind of groundbreaking, I think, especially The Haunting.
And I remember watching it I think when I was a teenager and thinking it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite close to the novel.
Yes.
Then there was the 1999 version.
Yes, the Jan de Bont one.
Jan de Bont.
Yeah.
With Catherine Zeta-Jones, among others.
Actually, an amazing cast when you look at it now, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was a big budget, kind of, frankly, too many special effects. And that was terrible.
Awful.
I mean, that is one of... And when I will name drop Mike Flanagan regularly throughout this.
Please do. I'm going to ask you about this interview.
But I did ask him about that version. He was absolutely clear that it was. I'm paraphrasing. He thought it was too bad, and in fact, he learned. So part of the lessons he was trying to learn, if you like, or kind of remind himself, was what was great about the 1963 version, what was terrible about the 99 version.
Yeah.
And I do think that all is part of what makes this what it is in a way.
Definitely. And I think it is like when the news broke, there was a part of me that was a little bit dubious because I think, that 1963 film is so beloved. Yeah. And they're so, it's like, and because the 99 one was so awful as well, it's like, really, are you going to try this again? And as a TV show as well. Because that's the other thing I want to ask you about because, horror... There seems to be horror is very popular in TV at the moment. We've got Sabrina coming up at the end of the month. There was a Scream TV series. Obviously, there's Walking Dead and American Horror Story. Yeah. Do you think what are your thoughts on do you think horror kind of works in that format as TV generally?
Well, I think it hasn't worked massively in my opinion. I mean, I like The Walking Dead, but I kind of I go in and out with it, and I have to say like I'm about 3/4 of a season behind. The new one starts. In fact, the new one started really.
Yes,
and I'll have a look. I almost feel like The Walking Dead has gone beyond horror now. Anyway,
it has a bit. Yeah, it has a bit. The zombies almost just feel peripheral, don't they?
Yeah. So I mean, when it started out though, I thought it was very effective. Actually, the first few episodes, there's a kind of quite basic, scary thing going on, and the way it's filmed and everything was quite, of. I think it was 16mm.
That's
film
right.
They used. They were almost like done in that deliberately done in that style, of almost like quite basic horror film.
Yeah, like you're watching a George Romero film.
Right.
Wasn't it?
Exactly. So I quite like that. Then I think American Horror Story, I also think isn't really horror.
No,
like I love it.
We talked about this briefly last time, didn't we? Because it is. I think I mentioned this before, but I find it descends into just camp madness by about midway through every season.
Well, I mean, the new season, you've only seen the new season descends into camp madness in the first 10 minutes. So
I mean, I can't.
I mean, I like it, by the way.
But this is the thing. I really have a mixed feelings about it because I tend to end up hating almost every season, I think. Yeah. But every time a new one comes out, I think, oh, this looks good. I want it to be good every year.
Yeah, I do enjoy it because it is massively over the top and silly. But honestly, this new season, even more than usual, is just camp fun. It's not in the slightest bit scary. So again, it's not. I don't feel it's like it's using horror. It's using the genre to be very entertaining. To make a lot of interesting points and to be really camping over the top. Joan Collins, for God's sake, is it?
Joan Collins. I mean, this is it. This is it. He gets these absolute kind of gay icons in the program, doesn't he? Lady Gaga and people like that. Brilliant. Yeah.
So again, that isn't really horror. And what was the other one you mentioned? Scream. I didn't watch that.
No, Scream. And obviously, there was Hannibal. There was the Bates Motel.
Hannibal I liked. Yeah, Hannibal I liked. It again was almost like kind of Grand Guignol.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Quite. Giallo-esque, really, in a way. I mean, so but again, I'm not sure if it was trying to be. It was trying to be creepy. Yes. But I think what this is leading up to is that this really represents. Probably the first proper attempt to do a horror serial.
Yes.
In classic horror sense.
Exactly.
Like a 10-hour horror film. I mean,
exactly.
And I do think it's different from all those other examples you mentioned.
And
so I hope maybe this will be the start of something different. Really.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is like the first, from what I've seen, I haven't seen the whole series yet, but I think it seems like the first great horror serial to me, like long, because obviously there's loads of brilliant TV horror shows that are like anthologies and things like that over the years, but in terms of actually telling one continuous story across 10 hours, this because I feel like horror for some reason always has these kind of pacing problems with a lot of the other TV shows we just mentioned. Runs out of steam kind of thing, whereas I think they've done an amazing job.
And what he's done is pretty bold and brave, because this is it's not the longest of novels. I actually had a look at it.
Right.
I should have bought it in the shop the other day. I just had a look at it in the shop, and both films were about 2 hours long, the good one and the terrible one.
Yes.
So he's now taking that story, which is, as far as I can make out, the original is just a kind of semi-random gathering of people in a haunted house.
Yeah.
And it's to what extent are the things they're scared of real, or are they in their head minds? Is part of the whole thing. I mean, except for the second one, where that isn't even a question.
No. You've got CGI cherubs, kind of.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, CGI cherubs. Exactly. So he's taken this very straightforward story, and turned it into a 10 episode thing. In fact, I think it's actually longer than 10 hours, because some episodes are even longer than an hour.
Yeah.
And that is very bold and brave, I think. I kind of salute him just for giving it a go.
Yes.
And when I interviewed him, he absolutely was brutally honest about the fact that he was terrified.
Interesting, yeah.
It was because I don't know if you've seen the story behind the making of it, but Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg's company, Amblin, produced it, I think, with Paramount TV, but Amblin bought the rights to the book.
Well, I wondered, have they always had it? Because Steven Spielberg was an exec on the crap haunting in the 90s.
They've had it for a long time.
Yeah,
they've had the rights for a long time, and they decided to try and turn it into a multi-part series, TV series. That was their idea.
Yeah.
And after, I think it'd been in development, and then they turned to Mike Flanagan, who by this point made 4 or 5 good horror films, really good horror films.
Yeah.
And so they went to him, and they went, and he it's one of his favourite books. So he told me it's what happened to one of his favourite books. He loves the original film, doesn't like the terrible one.
Yeah.
And he thought, okay, I've got to give this a go. And he'd already worked with Netflix on Gerald's Game, the Stephen King film, which was pretty effective.
Absolutely terrified me, that film.
It was great.
Really.
Yeah, it's really good.
Really good.
So he had that relationship with Netflix, and he thought, okay, and Netflix wanted to do it, so he went on board, and he literally went away for about a month and went, how do I turn this quite simple story into a 10-hour thing?
It's amazing.
And what he's come up with, and what he did come up with, the key thing was the timelines, the multiple timelines, and the family. So I think the two big changes from the original novel of people gathering in a haunted house are the 5 siblings that are brought up in this haunted house, effectively, in the key period of their traumatic childhood by 2, frankly, creepy parents.
Yes.
And then he decided, I'm going to tell their story and flit between them as children in the house, and then in the present day, how it's traumatized them and what they're doing now.
Yes.
So, and that is pretty much the case. So the main timelines are when they're kids and now grown up.
Yes.
But there are even other timelines. In fact, he told me there's about 10 all in all.
That is what's really
confusing. Yeah. So to start with, you're like, okay, so there's the kids in the house. That's definitely in the past. We're seeing some of them in the present, but you don't quite know who's who to start with. At least I didn't.
No.
And then he suddenly starts within the present day. There'll be a mini flashback to a few months before.
Yeah.
There might even be a flash forward to. I mean, he did tell me that his whole office was whiteboards everywhere with these meticulous timelines all sketched out. But I think in the end, it's turned out to be a masterstroke, because he's taken. Apparently, he told me it's not. There's not much from the novel that's ended up in the finished series, apart from the house.
Yeah.
Obviously the idea of this massive creepy mansion.
Yeah.
Little bits of some of the characters, but in the book they're not all. They're not. It's not a family. It's focusing on different. So that's different. But he said the tone and the mood.
Yeah.
And that idea of, is it real? Is any of this happening, or is it all in their heads? And that all the way, he said that was really key, which is obviously a very old horror idea.
Yes, but kind of invented by The Haunting almost. That's the thing.
Invented by this novel, apparently, because that's in the novel. He told me, he said, you really don't know when you finish the novel if it's happened to any of this has happened or not.
Yeah.
And so he does make, and there's some brilliant bits, so when we're talking detail about the show, where suddenly something is actually in their head, or is a manifestation of some real life trauma.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes it so effective.
Definitely. I think that's it. It's not so much a horror film like a Conjuring film, where it's kind of going, look, there's monsters and demons and ghosts. It's much more, this is a story about characters, isn't it? In some ways, I was talking, because I watched a bit of it with Rihanna as well, and she was saying it reminded her of something like a Damon Lindelof show, like Lost or Heroes or The Leftovers.
Yeah.
where it's more about these kind of characters' backgrounds and character flashbacks,
absolutely,
and backstories than it is about a haunted house.
True. Yeah,
in a way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the first 5 episodes, I think, are pretty much focused on each one of the siblings, aren't
you get
they?
a different background of each character,
And so you're seeing them all, you kind of get to meet them all a little bit during those first 5 episodes, and then it kind of becomes more of a general. I mean, I've only got halfway through the 5th episode, but I hear, he told me, in fact, that the rest of it is more kind of tracking them all in different ways and going into different directions.
Yes.
So the structure is really interesting, but you're right. But I think Rihanna's right. It's a character study, and it's about... I think probably what makes it really special is that it is creepy and scary, and there's an incredible level of intensity all the way through, isn't there? It's kind of more and more intense.
Yes.
But it is trying to say something about trauma and how that affects people. Yeah. And so there's the addict brother. Yeah. That's
it. You've got a character that's a drug addict who's got all kinds of withdrawals and all this kind of thing. You've got another character who's basically on some sort of antidepressant medication. So again, there's some psychosis
and
there.
all their jobs. One of them works is a mortician.
Yes, and that reminded me a bit of 6 Feet Under as well. There's a bottle episode coming up which reminds. It's so much like 6 Feet Under. It's crazy.
Is that just set in the mortuary? Is that right?
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
It's really good. Really good.
One of the oldest brother is a writer and has written a book about the experience of bringing.
Well, that's very
which
confusing.
is very clever and confusing, exactly. And once you get over that idea, you're like, okay, so there's a little bit of postmodern knowingness going on there, and all the other siblings resent the fact that he's written this book about their experiences growing up in the house.
Yes.
The other one is kind of a child psychologist.
Yes,
but dealing with kids that are going through similar traumas, which I thought was really clever. So they're all kind of doing stuff in the present day action, if you like, that is clearly linked to what they went
their
through.
They're kind of all dealing with it in different ways.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is really fascinating.
And then the overarching mystery, of course, which I haven't, is that the mother. So you right early on, you get scenes. I think the very first scene, as far as I can remember, that's ages since I saw it, is the kids in the haunted house in their rooms, being creeped out by nightmares.
Yes.
The parents kind of dealing with them, but in the flash forwards that the mother seems to have completely disappeared.
Yes.
Carla Gugino's character.
Yes.
Whereas the dad's still around.
Yes.
Played by Timothy Hutton in the present day.
Yes.
I love Timothy Hutton.
He's great.
He's absolutely brilliant. So there is that element, though. What the hell's happened to the mother is definitely an ongoing thing, as well as the trauma of they've all got incredibly creepy memories of mysterious, ghostly, supernatural stuff that seems to have happened to them in the house.
Exactly. It's so clever, and what I love, I think Mike Flanagan is a good match for this kind of story because Mike Flanagan, I think, is very good. If you see Gerald's Game, some of the creepiest bits in Gerald's Game are just those moments where she'll think she might be seeing a man standing in the corner of the bedroom, and she doesn't know if she's hallucinating or not. And that is basically this series, isn't it?
Yeah,
moments
totally.
like that where it won't be something jumping out and making a loud noise, but they'll suddenly you'll just catch a figure in the periphery or in the background.
Oh, completely. Yeah, he's brilliant at that.
It's so clever, and you don't know whether these characters are going through withdrawal symptoms, whether they're hallucinating, whether they're whatever, having a nightmare. It's really clever.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and I think they're the opposite of jump scares, aren't they? And he said this again when I interviewed him. So he said that one of the big, because once you've established the timeline situation, and that you're going to go that deep into these characters, and you're going to flit around between all these different past, present flashbacks, etc., is it hard to remember to make it scary? And he said again, that was one of his big challenges to keep it, and he was like, well, once it went to Netflix, because they don't have ad breaks and because people are prepared to binge and watch 2, 3, 4 episodes at a time, he felt confident to be able to draw out the scary elements of it, so that he does have, sometimes literally there'll be a shot that pans for about a minute.
Oh my god!
I mean, I timed one of them. There's one shot which is almost in the dark, and I was thinking that's a really long shot. It almost goes on for about a minute and a half before you see something horrible in the corner, and I think he's felt really liberated by the idea of making this 10-hour thing for Netflix, where he can absolutely stretch things to their breaking point.
I just love
and
it.
Build up that tension. And I do feel like he absolutely is brilliant at creating that atmosphere. I feel, it's quite a stressful watch in some ways, in a good way.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you, crucially, did you find it scary?
I did. I really did.
Yeah, me too.
And I think I almost found it scary, almost like all the way through. I think that anxiety is there.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's the music. There's
Yes.
quite an insistent
Yes.
music going on. And the sound design generally, you know,
Mm-hmm.
watching it on my headphones on my screen, admittedly, but I thought everything about that sound and the music, the intensity of the performances, even though, you know, and there are some funny bits. Like there's a basket of kittens. We must mention the basket of kittens, which is
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
I asked about that, but he even somehow managed to make this arrival of a very funny little basket of fluffy kittens.
Yes.
given to the kids. Even that is creepy and kind of scary
Yeah.
and funny at the same time.
Yes.
And it doesn't detract from the general overall tone
Yes.
of quite kind of very intense psychological fear.
Definitely.
So I thought it was really, really effective. Yeah.
Definitely. And we should talk about the house itself as well. I mean,
Yeah.
like, again, it's a scary house. That I think what was so effective in the original black and white movie was the house is like looming, and it kind of looks like there are parts of the furniture that have faces almost,
Yeah.
and like the doorknobs have
Yeah.
little faces on them and all that kind of stuff. And again, he's captured that really well in this.
Yeah.
hasn't
The
he?
design is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
And he doesn't really. I mean, a lot of it, not that much takes place in the house. It is
No.
all certain key moments, but
Yeah.
those moments are so effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very. There's I love the scene. There's a scene using what's it called? The Lazy Susan. Is that what it's called? The
Yeah.
That
What,
thing
the thing that spins round?
No, the thing that delivers food up and down from
what's
the kitchen.
that
What is
called?
that
The dumb waiter.
Dumb waiter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is. Yeah.
That is a brilliant little scene with the little kid, the littlest kid.
Yes.
And something going on in the basement, and he
Yes.
just kind of introduces different spaces in the house.
Yes.
Quite sparingly, but when he does use them for a big set piece, frightening scene, they're brilliantly effective. Yeah.
So clever. Yeah. I think, you know, what it nails is, I think what the best ghost movies are. We talked about ghost movies for so many weeks on this podcast, and I think the best ones are the ones that are more concerned with the characters and the characters' psyches than the ghosts,
Without
basically.
doubt.
And that's the thing
Yeah.
that Shirley Jackson invented, basically.
Yeah.
And movies like The Changeling and The Orphanage, and these ones that have a kind of sadness about them as well. And this definitely has that, doesn't it? It's really sad, devastating at moments.
It is really sad. Yeah, there's a lot of. We should say there is a lot of. It's not. I mean, I was about to say it's not fun, but having said that, I am having fun watching it. So
Yes.
that's a great trick, isn't it?
It's a great trick.
It's dealing with very weighty issues, and it is dealing with death and mourning and loss and all of that in a really in an unflinching way.
Yeah.
But yet it's not making me miserable, but because it is incredibly entertaining and so well done. It's a kind of real feat that
It
he's
is a
kind of
real feat.
maintained that tone to it.
Maybe in that way, that's why I thought it reminded me a bit of The Leftovers, because The Leftovers has that way about it. It's kind of very sad and very, you know, basically very depressing, really, in what it's about. But it's it's all these mysteries as well that make it.
And
so
The
much more
Leftovers, which is
interesting.
I think is an absolutely brilliant show. Yeah, that had some episodes where it was just, you know, almost like those little caper episodes, you know, where he goes off and is in the afterlife, maybe as some kind of like assassin figure. Those are incredible fun. Yeah. So again, you know, if you're kind of daring, if you dare to kind of go out there and stretch the tone and kind of, you know, because I always think whenever, I've probably said this before, it's one of my big bugbears about film criticism is when people say it's tonally all over the place. I'm like, well,
yes.
Yeah, often things are tonally all over the place, but if you like it, if you go with it, that can be brilliant.
Yes.
And I think that is the case, certainly with The Leftovers, and a little bit with this, that it's not tonally all over the place, but he does dare to break out from the relentless intensity.
He does.
And when he does, it's funny and kind of, or moving, or, you know, just not really a horror, particularly at any given moment. And then he eases your way back in to the ongoing, extraordinarily tense, horrific situation. So, you know, I think he's mastered that really, really, really.
He really has, yeah. And maybe that's the thing about horror on TV, is that it's got something to do with kind of tone management as well. The best horror shows, because again, you're stretching to stretch kind of fear and suspense across that amount of hours. When you break it up as well with ads and weekly episodes, is almost impossible, really, isn't it? So maybe that the platform of having, you know, 10 hours on Netflix as almost as a 10-hour film, and also being a bit more sparing with the scares and focusing it more on characters is what's done.
Definitely.
It so
I mean, he
well.
does stuff like in this. You know, there's the moment, isn't there, when is it episode 2, or where there's a quite full-on lesbian sex scene.
Yes,
you know?
yes, yeah.
And you're like, who are they? Like, you're kind of at that point. I was still trying to work out who's who.
I know what's so interesting, what's bold actually, because that character of Theo was a gay character in the book, and they don't really explicitly, but they basically do say in the 1963 film as well that she is a lesbian. In so many words.
Right. Well, they really, I mean, you know, that's the portrayal of, I'm no expert, but that feels like one of the more honest,
Yes.
portrayals of a gay woman or lesbian
Yes.
woman, and the way, just her whole story is brilliantly portrayed, I
Yeah.
thought. But he snaps into that quite lesbian sexy.
Yeah.
Really, really cuts to it quickly without any, there's
Yeah.
there's no working up to it.
No.
And then he explains again in a little flashback, I feel, if my memory is right, what happens in the lead up to that situation.
Yes.
But he somehow manages to have that kind of moment and still maintain his tone, and not that doesn't feel
true.
It's he's really, really confident.
Yeah.
That's the word, isn't it? The
Yeah.
storytelling is so confident that he can do that. He can have this sudden lesbian sexy,
Yeah.
and then have some really kind of tortuous, moving, scary set piece scene.
Yes.
Kind of a few minutes later. It's fascinating.
It is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it's really clever. So basically, before let's get into the details in a minute. But generally speaking, you would recommend this show by the sounds of it.
I think I'm trying to kind of I've watched it. Like, I've watched the first few episodes twice.
Yeah, oh, right,
I've written one review of it for one magazine. I wrote another review for another magazine. I'm kind of like, how far do I go in saying how good I think it is? I think I'm now, because I've only watched half of it. I've still got 5 episodes to go.
Sure.
But at this stage, I feel potentially it's borderline a fantastic, brilliant thing. Yeah. If it sustains this level of quality, I think.
Yes.
For the second half of the series.
Yes.
Then I'm going to be, I think it's definitely going to be up there with among the best
Yeah.
horror TV dramas
Yeah.
I can think of.
I agree.
And in some ways it could, because I really like Mike Flanagan's films. I think, they're really fun, entertaining. But I feel this is better.
I think
something,
it is.
it feels like it has gone deeper.
Yeah.
That deep dive, to use that hot cliche,
Yeah.
is really working.
Yeah.
So I think it's borderline.
Yeah, I would say the same. Obviously, it's hard to pass judgment until we've both seen all 10 episodes.
Yeah.
But again, from what I've seen, I think this is the most accomplished, successful horror, proper serialized horror TV show I've seen. Definitely. I think it's incredible. And the best thing that Mike Flanagan has done as well, because maybe just because he's had more of an opportunity, more money, a lot of his films are quite small, aren't they?
That's true.
Gerald's Game is just 2 people in one room, essentially,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. But he's very good. And
And the other thing I keep thinking about it now is that, because he's directing the Shining sequel.
yes, well, yes.
So now I feel, actually, I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely, because again, funnily enough, what you were just talking about, these slow, long pans and taking its time, it's a very Kubrickian, Shining type thing.
It really
that,
is,
isn't
yeah.
it?
So now I'm kind of, because I think originally when that was announced, I was like, oh, okay, fine. I just wasn't particularly, I was neutral about the idea. Now I'm like, oh, actually, I'm quite excited about it, because I think he is kind of brilliant at this stuff.
Definitely.
So if anyone can take on that, extraordinary challenge of a new Shining story, I feel like he could be up to it. He really could.
Definitely. And actually, weirdly, another thing that this reminds me of a little bit in that structure of a kind of kid's backstory in the first half and then adults present day in the second half is Stephen King's It, and that miniseries.
Yes.
And that miniseries had all kinds of problems, and especially in the second half when it gets to the adult storyline. But again, I feel like this is almost like the best version of that kind of a story as well.
I've seen some critics say, he should do, a big Stephen King adaptation like The Stand or something like that.
Yes, he should. He so should.
And and Stephen King's clearly very, very fond of him.
Yeah.
'Cause I know Stephen King loved Gerald's Game. Didn't
Right.
He? That was definitely,
of course. Yeah.
So I think there's that relationship there, and I can see him. And why the other thing I like about him generally is that he's completely unashamedly embraced the fact that he is a horror director. That is his thing.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's, I know that you mentioned James Wan, and there are a few of them.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's embraced it in the most healthy way. He's
I
kind
agree.
of working out the secrets of the genre, and he's not just making the same film repeatedly. He's kind of doing different things with it, and I feel like he's honing his technique brilliantly.
Definitely, it's something to do with like rather than working out how you can orchestrate a good jump scare. He's working out how you can actually tap into some kind of uncanny fear within people, isn't he? That's the thing. That's what he's very good at.
And there's often a moment where, as you said, suddenly you'll see a shape of someone's face in some wasp or something. That's the thing that happens, I think. And you're like, it kind of is a jump scare, but yet again, it's not because really jump scares in cinemas anyway, at least, are often just a loud thing, aren't they? A huge loud bang on the soundtrack, which literally scares you out of your seat. Whereas this isn't that. It might be just suddenly you notice something, and suddenly a shape forms, which is horrible.
It's my favourite type of scare.
It's not a jump scare. I don't know what the word for that is, but
No.
it's different. But he's got that down to a T.
Absolutely, yeah. I watched The Nun a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you've seen that, endured that film, because I hate that. Made me
terrible.
so angry.
It was terrible,
that film. Yeah,
I had to physically. My friend really wanted to see The Nun. I'd seen the preview of it, and I said, "I know you really love horror films, you like Us." And he was really. I was like, "No, I've got to see it. I've got to see it." We went to see what was the previous one before The Nun, which was quite good.
Was it Annabelle Creation?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
I like that.
That was the better one, wasn't
it? Yeah, it was the better one. And he was like, "No, we've got to go." I was like, "Honestly, you can't go. I refuse to leave because it's so awful. It was so terrible."
Yeah. And again, they had so much opportunity there. Convents are scary.
Yeah.
Nuns are scary.
Yeah,
there was so much opportunity to make that scary.
It was
and
a
they
shocker.
ruined it.
Yeah, it was an absolute shocker.
But anyway, so let's briefly talk about a bit more about the characters and the story,
Sure.
at least what we've seen then.
Now I want you two to get good rest.
What if I have a bad dream?
Well, I'm sure we can handle any dream you have.
What if I dream that you sent us away into the dark and we get hurt? Really hurt? And what if I'm so sad and scared of the dark out there that I put poison in me for years and years until my blood turns into poison and my heart breaks right in half and I can't feel anything happy? Till I can't stand it anymore and I have to die. And time on a silver table. Is my jaw wired shut? Would you wake us up from a dream like that?
So this is kind of minor spoilers we're going into now for the first few episodes. But yeah, so I do think it's interesting what they did with the characters. So you've got Theo and Nell and Luke, who were all characters in the original, weren't they?
Right.
But they weren't siblings, crucially. But there are some key similarities. Nell was very much the central character of the book and the film, and she was the one almost that narrates it. And in the 1963 Robert Wise film, she basically narrates it. You've got an internal monologue that you hear throughout the whole thing of her kind of going, "Oh, what's that noise?" and blah blah blah. And what I thought was really bold was that in episode 1 they basically kill her off.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, we're going really different now. Then it's
completely,
like Nell's dead.
Yeah,
in
that was a huge
episode 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I love the way they did that. I agree. Yeah, it was incredibly kind of powerful.
Yeah.
And unexpected. But she does, of course, appear still throughout the series.
Yes.
In lots of different ways. But because her episode then arrives kind of because that's her death. She then gets we get to see a lot more of her backstory, don't we? Later on,
Yeah.
In as you say, in this mixing of timeline situation, and her twin, Luke, is also fascinating. Again, we don't see hardly anything of him.
No,
so we see hardly anything of him. I'm sorry, as an adult at least, we see little bits of him as a kid. He's very cute. He's adorable.
Cute,
that boy, absolutely. And I mentioned this again to Mike Flanagan. I was like, your casting of the kids was so clever. And he said when they found little Luke, it was this little kid in glasses who's adorable.
It's slightly kind of cross-eyed. He's got those kind of very thick glasses.
Yeah, and he's got this incredibly genuine, like what you're absolutely scared for him. He's so when he has to be scared in this thing, he is incredible. I think.
And we'll get to that. One of my favourite moments so far in the series.
So there's him, and he's played by Oliver Jackson Cohen as an adult.
Yes,
who's brilliant. Who's a British actor. He was in. Have you seen? He was in Man in the Orange Shirt. A really good 2 parts. He's British. Absolutely brilliant fully American accent.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, you'd never know. He's fantastic as well. And Flanagan again said, they were so thrilled when they cast him because he had that intensity.
Yes.
Because he's the drug addicted figure.
Yes.
And his episode is basically a story about addiction, isn't
it?
And kind of trying to help someone else, and it's almost not really. I mean, it has got some great little moments.
That was the episode where I thought, oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
This series is brilliant because it veered. I mean, it still has some absolutely terrifying moments in that episode, but it is a story of an addict. Yeah, basically, that's all it is. Yeah, it's wonderful.
So there's them. Then there's Theo.
Yes.
Yeah. Who is fascinating, and she's the child psychologist.
She's the child psychologist who's the gay character who has like what seems to be the most supernatural element of the story, that she maybe has some sort of gift, some sort of psychic gift, doesn't she?
Yes.
Where she can touch things when she takes her gloves off and kind of get their backstory.
And her episode, I thought, and again that episode, which was about abuse, wasn't it? And and again that I thought was just so clever because it added another element to it. And then you're thinking all the way through, is that an element of their story then.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I still don't know.
No, I don't know. And but also it kind of plays on the fact that she's very much the middle child, and she was the kind of ignored, forgotten one, almost kind of the neglected one of the five of them, wasn't she?
Yeah,
which again, I suppose, is an interesting kind of
yeah. So I thought that was fascinating, and Shirley the mortician. Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I keep thinking, because Shirley and Stephen are the two oldest siblings. These are the two that, as far as I can remember, are in no way characters in the original films.
Right.
So I'm assuming not in the book either. But of course, the author was Shirley Jackson.
Yes.
And so I keep thinking, is it going to turn out at the end that she writes a new book or something?
Because he's written his book, which is literally called The Haunting of Hill House.
Exactly. Yeah. And she's very angry that he's written this book about the family and made it very much exploited their family story. And my prediction is this, I'm going to turn out to be completely wrong, that she is going to rewrite the story and change the characters, and they'll still be called Theo and Nell, but they won't be related and they won't be linked to their own family story, and she'll fictionalise this book and call it The Haunting of Hill House, and it will be Shirley Jackson's book. That's my hot take prediction.
That's a really good hot take. And then it'll be turned into a terrible film starring Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah,
they'll go that far.
Exactly. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah. And we should say, and Stephen, the oldest brother, played by Michelle Huisman. From Game of Thrones.
Who's great.
Who's great. And he's the first episode where, as we said, kind of, and that again flips back and forth, even more confusing. There's almost more timeliney action in that episode, just to make it really confusing initially, because he's interviewing people who've also had experiences that they feel have had supernatural ghost experiences, and he's interviewing them from a kind of skeptic's point of view, isn't he?
Yes.
So that's already kind of playing on the whole idea of, has this stuff happened or not? And he's a constant skeptic, even though he's gone through this trauma of growing up in this horrendous house.
Yeah,
but clearly something horrible things are happening. But he seems to have kind of dealt with the whole thing by writing this book about it.
He's very much almost repressed it all or something, hasn't he, compared to everyone else?
Exactly.
But we should talk about the confusion. I mean, that's the one thing about it. When you first begin that first couple of episodes, it is confusing.
It is.
More, especially with the female characters. I found like there are the three sisters are very similar in a lot of ways. These three very beautiful brunette women all look
with pale skin. And the mother who also looks the same,
and even the kind of what do you call her, the maid, the cleaner also has a similar kind of look as well, and
meet some of their partners as adults. Which is confusing. That's when you're like, who's he? At one point there was someone popped up and I didn't really, it was someone's partner, and I was like, oh, okay, that's who he is.
Yes.
He doesn't, and what was the comparison you made to The Leftovers is a good comparison. Because if you remember, the brilliant thing about The Leftovers when it started, at least, was that you had no idea what the hell was going on. Do you remember?
Exactly.
So it established the concept of the show.
You're piecing it together.
Yeah. And that's what he does in this. So you're piecing it, and I feel like some people may say, oh my God, this is so complicated, I'm not going to carry on, I'm going to stop watching it. But I feel like you have to say it's worth it. And I think so. I think you have to be honest, like, as a viewing experience, I just kind of like let it all flow over me. Do you know what I mean? That's what I did.
Me too.
Then when I had to actually sit down and write with you, then I needed them to tell me exactly who played who.
Yes.
In a very, that's the child, that's the adult, and each person's name and which sibling they were. I had to have it all spit out.
Definitely.
Because it's a hard thing to keep track of.
It is.
But then once you do let it flow over you, and then you kind of do, then you kind of slowly but surely, you do begin to get to know them, which I guess is like,
you do,
as you get to know people.
It's the same as any TV cast, I suppose, isn't it? Definitely. I think that sometimes with cast, they make them all look so distinctive and they have their own thing at the beginning, whereas these guys are deliberately so. They're all siblings, they all look alike, and it's quite confusing at the beginning.
He does try and cut, and there's a lovely thing you told me. He cuts, there's a lot of cuts between the past and present where they're doing similar things, or that he does that. There are a lot of lovely transitions.
Yes,
not always though. Sometimes he does really sharp transitions, and you're like, oh my God, who's that? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But what he told me about in the making of it was when he cast the adults first. Then, and a lot of them he's worked with before.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
And then he cast the kids, and he got some, brilliant people the most experienced people you could find at casting, finding children can act. Then he brought them together in a kind of boot camp situation before filming took place, where the adults, he would let the kids behave how they behave, and the adults had to follow their little idiosyncrasies.
Great.
So
that's
the
a
adults,
much better way to do it.
I thought that's such a clever thing. I mean, it sounds obvious now, but you'll see in the thing there are some little, and I was watching out for them when he told told me this. There are some little ticks or little physical things they do that the adults do, following on from what the kids do. I thought that was a really clever thing. So they kind of got to know, even though obviously you never see them together on screen.
No.
But the child actor and the adult actors got to know each other over a period of time before the shooting started.
That's a great idea. I've noticed that especially with Luke.
Yeah.
Again, to go on about Luke and the actor, both actors are so brilliant. And even though he does, look completely different, obviously, as an adult than this little cute boy wearing glasses.
Yeah.
But he does have like some of these kind of mannerisms.
He
and
really does. Yeah.
Facial expressions, kind of
It's
quite gormless facial expression.
You're right.
that
Yeah,
he
it's
plays.
ingenious. So it's Oliver Jackson Cohen is the adult, and
That's
Julian
it.
Hilliard. I feel we have to name him.
We
He's
have
so
to
good,
name him.
Is the little kid.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
absolutely amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, all of them are brilliant. And I think the other thing as well, when you're in that first couple of episodes and you're trying to get to grips with all these different timelines and characters, what keeps you going as well is that it is fun and it's scary.
Yeah.
It's still littered with scary set pieces, isn't it? As well,
and even the bits that aren't scary are fascinating.
Yes.
You're immediately drawn in by him interviewing these people who've had these scary incidents happening, which aren't anything to do with the main story.
Yeah.
And then later on in the episode, the child psychologist talking to that kid who's drawn these pictures of scary things going on in her basement. That was lovely. That's kind of almost like a little semi-standalone storyline.
Yeah.
That comes to fruition in a really fascinating way.
Yeah.
And you're still getting to know other characters at the same time. So I think it is really, really
it's
effective.
really clever. So you're up to where, episode 5-ish? Yeah, because you can probably tell, basically the first 5 episodes are the 5 kids.
Yeah.
Each one is focused on a different kid, and each episode basically only gives you in the present day sort of about a 2-day period, basically the day leading up to Nell's suicide, and the slight aftermath of it, as each character finds out Nell has died.
Yeah.
And really, that's all the first 5 episodes are the 5 or the 4 siblings or the 5 siblings, surrounding this death of Nell, basically.
Yeah. Although the Luke one, which we're talking about, that one that has a 6-month.
Yes, it does. It
jump,
flips
doesn't
back.
it?
Yes,
Flips
'cause
back.
all
Just
of them,
to make it more, just to add to the complication.
well, that's the thing. All of them do flip back and forth loads, but
Yeah.
they all kind of come to a head at the point where they get the news
that's
that
true.
Nell
You're
has
right. You're
died, don't
absolutely
they?
right. Do you know what? Having you saying that, I didn't even realise that.
It's
You just
really
said it.
clever.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's
That's
really clever.
amazing.
They
Yeah.
basically each episode
You're right,
ends with each sibling.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I won't tell you because I've seen episodes 6 and 7, but then
Okay.
episode 6 onwards is like, right now we continue with the
Right.
present day story
Right.
almost.
Okay. No, that's amazing. Yeah. And we should say that the dad, played by Henry Thomas of E.T. fame,
Yes.
in the past,
Oh my God, it is
incredible. And Timothy Hutton, who, as I said before, absolutely brilliant. One of my favourites, Ordinary People, legendary film.
Oh yeah.
Is playing him as the older guy, and that's brilliant because they kind of do look similar.
They do.
and
It's
they have
really
a really
weird, that.
similar, and they're both absolutely brilliant actors.
Yeah.
But that costume works really well, and then you're like, well, what's going to happen to bloody poor Carla Gugino as his wife?
I know. It's wonderful. My favourite, my standout moment I was hinting at it earlier is I think it's in the Luke episode where Luke is hiding under the bed and somebody comes in
brilliant,
to get their bowler hat back.
Yeah.
Oh,
it really taps into childhood kind of fears, doesn't it?
It
Like,
really
you know
does.
how Stephen Moffat did this in Doctor Who. I don't know if you're probably not a Doctor Who
Yeah,
fan.
well, I've seen the odd.
He was very clever at having little things that would. So he had one episode, the crack in the wall, which was a kind of an ongoing image that throughout about 2 series.
Yes.
But in fact, I think it was Matt Smith's very first episode had this kid with a crack on the wall of his bedroom.
Right.
And it was like a kind of festering
Yeah.
crack. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you're like what's in there?
yeah.
That felt very like a primal
Yes.
kid's fear. And there's another brilliant episode again, which Moffat wrote, which was like a thing in a kid's bed.
Oh.
And you're like, is the kid imagining this thing? And you never really saw it. It was just like this kind of this thing in the corner of the frame that was like moving steadily, and you're like, but is the kid imagining it or not? And again, things happening to kids in their bedrooms, where they have to hide
night.
under the bed.
Yeah.
It's not particularly original, but it's very, very well done. In that
I think that's it. It's how well you do it, and he does it so well. And again, to go back to that Gerald's Game image of that person stood in the corner of the room, it's that kind of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
totally,
so clever,
yeah.
and it's very matter of fact about it. Like, you do see these ghosts. Like, he walks out into the corridor and you just see this man floating down the corridor, knocking on doors,
Yeah.
and it's like, holy shit, you know, and it is scary. And
Yeah.
but he's not afraid to kind of show you the monsters as well, is he?
Completely.
Which is what's
and the
great.
design of those is really effective as well. Yeah, the little
very
there's-
creepy.
what's the woman called
the bent neck
the bent neck lady.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you need to know. Even just that, she is horrendous. As
Yeah,
well.
absolutely horrendous. And so, I love all of that aspect to it. I think it still manages to be properly scary as well.
It really
That's the
does,
thing.
yeah.
So I'm just hoping, like as I say, neither of us have seen it through to the end yet. But fingers crossed.
I'm
it's
confident.
gonna-
I mean, I am confident. And now I feel like I've seen all of these episodes introducing all these characters so well. I can't wait. If I had more time, I've had to watch about 5,000 other things this week.
Exactly.
But I would have absolutely. This is the one I want to go back to and finish those 5 episodes.
Yeah.
And because it is, I'm really desperate to see how it all plays out.
Definitely.
And I think I've read. I think all the reviews came in this week. The kind of the showbiz press varieties and Hollywood reporters, and they've all been pretty glowing about it. So I think there's a general sense that he's really done something special.
I can't imagine anyone being down on this in a way. I mean, other than that, maybe you're right. Maybe it's got a few too many timelines and characters.
Yeah, I saw one review that just said, he should have just because it is bewildering.
Yes,
and I think some people are just predisposed to accepting that something might be a bit confusing to start with. Nothing again when I interviewed him, he was like, so Netflix told him this bit of research, which was that their viewers are prepared to sit down. If they're going to sit down and binge on something, if it's that is in their head, they're prepared to watch 2.5 episodes of something.
Yeah, exactly.
Of anything. Whereas if you're going to watch Bodyguard, I keep using that example, but it is the big drama hit of the year. That hooks you in the first 20 minutes of that incredible sequence.
It has to,
and it has to. And people will complain on social media if they think something's a bit boring or confusing in the first 5 minutes. They'll complain about it.
Yeah.
And they won't. But I think it's a different thing if you're easing your way into a Netflix show, a 10-hour series, and you're prepared to watch the first 2.5 episodes. That's exactly what he does. He's playing with that. He knows that people will give it time and they will immerse themselves in it. And if you're not prepared to do that, then fine. Don't watch it.
Yeah.
But I think there's no point in criticising it for being a bit confusing because it has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's not going to get 10 hours out of this story.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think the reward is absolutely worth it.
I think so. I think some of these programs are, these kind of mystery shows that lump you into all these questions at the beginning. Like I guess Twin Peaks must have been one of the first to do that. And, and then of course Lost and things like that as well. And like you say, The Leftovers. These types of programs they mostly pay off when you stick with them, don't they?
And I think
That's
this is
the
less like Westworld. I mean, is Westworld has a bit lost.
I've got to say, actually, that lost me.
Well, it's lost me as well, and I got really angry with Westworld because I
Yeah.
felt like they were only adding these timelines and making it really confusing, and because that's all there was. I almost felt there was no other kind of substance to it. I felt.
I agree. There was no emotional side.
Yeah,
no
and it got
character
very
side.
irritating quite quickly in season 2.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I think it's all about that storytelling. It's all about how is what's that happened to them as kids affected them now as grown ups, and how is time playing out in their heads, and all of that. So I think it's like it feels very organic. in that sense, if I can use that word.
I think it does, and it kind of each episode does have its own little arc, like its kind of character arc, which is what's really clever about it. Like that, like we keep coming back to that Luke episode where it basically is like his 90 days of being sober, isn't it? And then the Theo one is kind of about her dealing with abuse and things going on in her personal life and that kind of thing. So and again that is a very, it felt like a very Lost thing to me, that like you've got this like long running mystery, but each character has their own little journey each week that they go on as well.
Here's the big question though, which I didn't ask Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, go on.
Is it really going to be a self-contained serial?
Yes,
a limited series,
a
they call them in
mini
America,
series, exactly.
Because he did tell me, I think he did, even without me asking, he said, there's absolute resolution to it all, but is it still viable to have a second ongoing season of it? Like, because
please God, no.
Right. Well, but I did my sense is with every TV series going, no matter how limited it's supposed to be in its initial conception, if it's popular and if it's critically acclaimed, then they will want it back. The Big Little Lies is for example in my mind, which is an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah,
and it's completely self-contained.
It was a perfect
story.
Yeah, and
they literally said to the author of the original novel, "Can you please come up with another story for us because we need to make another series because everyone loved it." And I feel with this, they're not going to go to Shirley.
No, they can't. I don't think she's with us anymore.
I don't think she's with us anymore. But I'm sure they could say to Mike Flanagan, "Are you prepared to extend this universe for another 10 episodes?" I mean, I'm just fascinated by that. So even though I haven't even seen the ending, I kind of feel already they must be thinking about it.
That I thought exactly that. And again, I haven't seen the ending yet, and I'm sure that he's treated this, like you said, as a very self-contained mini-series.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that must have been talked about at Netflix or somewhere, or Paramount or somewhere down the line.
Definitely. And I feel this is going to be, for them, one of their biggest
big hits.
Obviously they don't ever tell anyone how many people watched any of their stuff, but it feels like, to me, this feels like a Stranger Things, House of Cards level.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Their top level
an event.
of impact, an event.
I think so. And it's October, it's Halloween.
I think it's got all the elements, definitely. Yeah. And the other quick thing I meant to mention in when you asked him about Spielberg, so it's Spielberg's company. Spielberg, a huge fan of the novel as well.
Yeah.
And he said that Spielberg took particular interest in every stage of the production. So he was the first one to read the scripts. Right. He was the first one to see the edits. He was like watching the rushes almost. He was like, so on one hand, I was like, oh, was that scary? You've got Spielberg, who of course we think pretty much directed Poltergeist, one of the all-time great family haunted house horror films. Yeah. And he was like, I was terrified because he's a massive Spielberg fanboy. Yeah. But he was so helpful and he was so nice and encouraging about it that you can almost feel, like, oh God, I bet, how useful must he have been? Yeah. He was like, as he was wandering through these corridors of this house, filming this amazing set, thinking, oh well, Spielberg's over my shoulder, filming Poltergeist. Yeah, so that was fascinating.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if Spielberg, has regrets over the fact that maybe he didn't get involved as he should have in the 1999 Haunting.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Execing, maybe he thought.
But he must feel now. Maybe this is the redemption, isn't it?
It is.
He's gone from that shocking film, now to this fantastic, thing. This
20 years on, pretty much. Yeah, it's interesting what we were just saying about how you've got to grab people when it's a kind of weekly show in that way. You can't rely on people binging, and I think that's what pissed so many people off last year about Twin Peaks: The Return, wasn't it? Because it was very much basically an 18-hour film divided up, and yet it was still weekly, and you could watch a whole hour of basically nothing happening, of somebody sweeping a floor or something.
Yeah. And also it felt like
that's what was so bold about it.
It was incredible, wasn't it? And also, like, some episodes, loads of things happened. Absolute jam-packed. Yeah. And then there'll be an episode where it was a complete, like, black and white art house mystifying thing. It was that, wasn't it? It was that almost just completely bewildering inconsistency. I feel like that was on a different. I know you're a huge fan of that. I loved it as well. But I think that was like one extreme of the 18-hour complete film concept. I feel like The Leftovers was, which you compared it to. I think that storytelling was brilliant. That totally worked for me. I think it showed you stuff. It showed and didn't tell. Yes, but it was always so gripping. Yes. Even when you had no idea why people were doing what they were doing. I still don't really know why they smoked all the time. The mad cult in it.
No,
I was like, what is like? It was like, where's the big explanation?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It didn't matter though.
No, it just didn't matter. Exactly. It was like they're doing crazy mad things, and it was like they're justifying their mad religious tenets. Yeah. Yeah, because they need to come up with mad religious tenets. It was almost for the sake of it.
I think the key is with these things is how important should you be taking the mystery, I suppose, because I feel like Damon Lindelof learnt from Lost and in The Leftovers, where I agree, in The Leftovers it felt like the mystery of where these people went was secondary to the characters. Absolutely, wasn't it? Yeah. Whereas I think, spoiler alert for Lost, but like the fact that, it is a kind of shit explanation at the end, and it turns out that, it kind of, them sort of saying in the last episode, it wasn't really about the island, it was about the characters. Yeah. Felt like a bit of a cop-out when they had built this mystery so much.
The storytelling of Lost, we've completely diverged on Lost, but the storytelling of Lost was absolutely 100% from the start, keep queuing you up to explain what the hell this island was and why these people were there. Yeah, and I don't care who says, they kind of changed their mind about that, but that was absolutely 100% exactly what it was supposed to be, and it did not deliver on that promise. It didn't. Whereas Leftovers tells you this bizarre thing's happened, and then explores it in the most powerful way.
Yeah.
And all the way through you think, I may never find out
No, and I
what
think
the explanation is, and that's fine. And although in the end, I still think actually the finale of Leftovers is brilliant,
Just
and tells you
perfect.
just enough.
It does.
And,
It lets you make your mind up,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
I think they nailed it tonally with the Leftovers, and that I don't know what it is exactly, whether it's specifically in the writing, but it felt somehow like you knew that you may not get an explanation,
Yeah.
and that didn't matter.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
just the characters were so much better
Yeah.
or something. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like
we should mention one other show before we go to, which is Patrick Somerville, who wrote a lot of The Leftovers. He has written all of this show Maniac that's on Netflix at the moment.
yes, I haven't. I've got
Kerry
it queued up. I haven't
Right,
watched
so that's
it yet.
the Kerry Fukunaga, who's the new
Yes.
Bond director.
Yes.
Directed the first series of True Detective, the
Yep.
good season of True Detective.
Yep.
That's there. So they did the show together. They wrote and directed the whole thing, and because I interviewed them as well, and Patrick and I kept going on about how brilliant, how much I loved The Leftovers, and there are little elements of it in Maniac.
Yes.
But they're really interesting about ambitious, big, long form storytelling, and they both absolutely love it, and they both loved. And Maniac is even more bewildering than this. So Maniac, the first episodes of Maniac, this feels like, the most obvious bit of straightforward storytelling ever compared to that, where you have no idea what's going on in Maniac for 2 episodes, and you only really know the format of the show, which it has got like a format, if you like, in episode 4.
Right.
Suddenly,
Wow.
you realise this is what they're doing, and that's why these characters are going on these adventures. It's absolutely extraordinary, and again, it all comes back to they're kind of confident. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of people are like, "Oh no, I'm too pissed off. I can't carry on watching this because it's too annoying and bewildering."
Yes.
But I do feel it's that's definitely the thing, isn't it? About
It is.
these big ambitious cinematic TV series.
Yeah.
Certainly the Netflix ones that they're going to have multiple timelines. Again, in Maniac, there's gazillions of timelines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loads of flash forwards and flashbacks.
Yeah.
Fantasy sequences, the whole lot. And that is we're definitely living in a time of the most complex storytelling.
I think that's right, and it's just a totally different medium, isn't it? It's like you're watching, like we keep saying, you're watching a 10-hour film rather than a series of mini episodes.
And they do say, everyone says that. That's the other thing I was going to say. All of the showrunners of all of these shows all say it's like a 10-hour movie or an 8-hour movie, but often it isn't. And I think this case it really is. So I think the House on Haunted Hill really genuinely feels like a brilliant 10-hour film.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, it's so good. Oh, wonderful. Well, I think where they go. We've said all we could say about those first few episodes. Amazing. Boyd, thank you so much for joining
Pleasure.
me. Where can people find you if they want to come find you online or find any of your multitude of other podcasts?
It's always
or
my
anything
name.
like that?
It's Boyd Hilton.
Lovely.
On Twitter and Instagram, and new issue of Pilot TV, which
Yes.
I'm deputy editor of.
Amazing.
It's
So this
wrapped with Empire.
Yes. So this is kind of the Empire TV magazine.
It is,
essentially.
effectively, exactly, yeah. It's a magazine entirely about this stuff. So my interview with Mike Flanagan is in the new issue of Pilot TV, which is bagged with Empire.
Great.
So you can't buy it separately. It's all one big, huge package.
Right. Amazing.
One big glorious
It's a great
package.
idea,
It's a
actually.
brilliant idea.
A really
yeah.
brilliant idea.
So that's in there, my review, and one of my reviews of The House on Hotel is in there.
Amazing.
But that's where you can find me.
Amazing.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and a big thank you to my brilliant guest, Boyd Hilton. Let us know what you think of The Haunting of Hill House. Do you agree with me that this is probably one of the best, at least serialised, horror TV shows ever made? Get in touch. The email address is evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @evolutionpod or on Facebook. That's facebook.com/evolutionofhorror. You can also find us on Instagram @theevolutionofhorror and on Letterboxd @evolutionpod. So we will be back again at some point soon for another instalment of our Shocktober Halloween marathon. So join us again for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.